And the research also suggests that lighter skin causes, as I mentioned, differences in educational attainment, socioeconomic status, income, and overall life chances. There's also a wide body of research within the health arena that talks about the health implications of this. Darker skinned black folks are more likely to have higher blood pressure compared to their lighter skinned counterparts. Stanton, why do you think that is? Put me on the spot. You're like, that's why this is a keynote. This is not a...
Stresses and pressures.
You're absolutely right. So what we find, we know that there is a huge issue for people of color being stressed because they're people of color. They have to go about their day-to-day life with an added stress, added burden, if you will, of navigating their way through life as a person of color. If you add if you add skin tone to that, there's an added stress level or added pressure there for being a darker skinned person. So beyond being a black person, being a darker skinned black person has more levels of stress and impacts one's blood pressure. So we know that plays a role as well. There's lots of interesting stuff coming out of the criminology field that looks at the fact that darker skinned individuals who get sentenced to prison terms have higher prison terms compared to their lighter skinned counterparts. So it has all kinds of implications. And people aren't using a brown paper bag anymore. But it still has tons of social implications. And of course, there are tons of differences for women because we have these huge standards of beauty for women. And of course, the standard of beauty is blonde hair and blue eyes. And that puts women of color kind of in this tough situation because many of them are not blonde hair and blue eyes, unless of course you go get you some blonde weave and get some blue contacts, which a lot of people do. But there is a marked difference for women because of, I kind of say that tongue-in-cheek, standards of beauty and then the resources related to social capital. So I have a few pictures here. Here we go.
Let's go.
That talk about the contemporary implications of skin color for women. If you just do a quick Google search and put in light skin versus dark skin, maybe even colorism in women or black women, you'll get tons and tons of things like this, right? So there's been this proliferation of parties like this, I'd say over the past 5 years or so. The first party like this that I've heard of was back in 2007. A party promoter in the city of Detroit who wanted to have a party for Libras and light-skinned women. So he put together a flyer for a light-skin bash where he wanted to have all the light-skinned women come to the party and get in for free. And they were going to actually have, and could you hold your purse up again? They were actually going to have a brown paper pack. They're going to have the, what do you call the person at the door, the big person? The bouncer. Have a brown paper bag at the door, checking women and their skin tone. And if they made it, if they were lighter than the color of the brown paper bag, they could get in for free. If they didn't, they'd have to pay a fee. Okay, and these are two examples. I didn't bring that flyer, but these are two other examples of recent things like this. Did you see the light skin versus dark skin party, right? The most anticipated party of the year. Okay, you see at the top. And then on the right-hand side, Battle of the Complexions. This party just happened, a few weeks back.
Wow.
Okay. At the venue on Martin Luther King Drive. Of course, not here in the city of Jacksonville.
What city was that?
But you have light skin versus caramels, browns in parentheses, versus dark skin. So you start to see how the legacy of slavery and then the continued issues with colorism still play themselves out in today's black society. Okay, so this idea of pitting women against each other because of their skin tone. But a few more pictures, and then I'll be done here.
Oh yeah.
Couple more photographs, which are really interesting.
Good
We've seen this plays itself out quite a bit in the media. Lots of social media, definitely, but quite a bit in the media, where you see lots of African American or black folks dealing with the way in which they're presented in the media, and of course tending toward lighter skin. So you have Gabrielle Sidibe, who is an actress, and she was in a critically acclaimed film, Precious, at the upper left-hand corner. She was on the cover of Elle last year, and there was quite a stir because the way in which she appears on the cover of Elle is very different than her actual skin tone that you see on the right-hand side of that. Very, very different, right? So that puts the message out there that in order to be accepted, even if you're not white, in order to be accepted, you have to be as close as you can to being white. Okay. And there's a couple other things that they do that kind of tweak her features as well. Sort of next to that, there's a rapper. Her name is Trina. She has, admitted to bleaching her skin. That's a big problem as well. So the lengths that people go to in order to be closer to white, to be, received better. So you see her transformation on the left to the right. In the middle, Beyonce is always at the center of this issue with the way in which people Photoshop her skin tone out to be lighter than what it is, than what it really is. We have to put Barack Obama here because he himself, of course, has never really talked about this issue, but there's tons of things swirling around colorism and passing and biraciality related to our president ever since he's come onto the political scene. Right next to him, which is so interesting, in the middle, between the president and Sammy Sosa, we have Lil Wayne, who is a rapper.
I didn't even know.
And Lil Wayne has been very vocal about his preference for light-skinned women, right? He talks about it a lot in his, I was gonna say his song, but I guess it's a song, in his rap lyrics, his preference for light-skinned women. He's not the only one. There are other really popular rap artists who talk openly about their preference for light-skinned women, and you see this preference play itself out when you start to see the music videos, okay? The lighter-skinned women making the cut, if you will. Sammy Sosa is not Dominican. He is not black, but I just had to throw him up here anyway because it's just so shocking, right? He is a retired baseball player, and as I mentioned before, he's Dominican, so he's Hispanic. But he has admitted to bleaching his skin as well. So we see the transformation of Sammy Sosa as a darker-skinned Dominican to his very, very light appearance now. And he's also altered the color of his eyes and his hair. Even as the multimillionaire that he is, he's openly admitted that he feels better with his lighter skin and feels more accepted. That as a darker-skinned individual with brown eyes and kinky hair, that he didn't feel as accepted. Okay. And so he went to those lengths in order to make himself feel better.
Difference.
So, in closing, how do we continue James Weldon Johnson's legacy, or the importance of sort of continuing the legacy, the things that are set forth, the important things that are talked about in the autobiography of an ex-colored man, and the things that Johnson talked about in his life. I think Margaret Hunter put it best when she talks about colorism being a problem affecting all Americans, just like racism is a problem affecting all Americans. And the onus is on all of us as Americans to do things to try to challenge that, openly address these issues and talk about these issues and not be afraid to deal with it. Because believe it or not, black and non-black people alike participate in reinforced colorism. It's not just a black thing. Everyone does it. When we validate Beyonce for being lighter skinned, when we validate people for for straightening their hair, when we validate people for doing things that are closer to white, regardless of your race and regardless of your ethnicity, we all participate in reinforced colorism on a regular basis. We also know that colorism is deeply impacted within Hispanic and Asian communities as well. I just mentioned Sammy Sosa, who's Dominican, so it's obvious that it impacts him, definitely. And there's been lots of research out there talking about the prevalence of colorism in Asian American communities. And then lastly, there's some really interesting conversations and lots of dialogue related to where our society is going in the 21st century as it relates to race. Is racism going to die? And if so, what's going to replace it? And a lot of people are arguing that racism will slowly die as more and more people intermarry and have people who are multiracial. Will slowly start to blur the racial lines. Okay, and that we'll all become more racially mixed. And given that, racism will disappear. A lot of folks argue that colorism will sort of rise to the top as the thing that separates people. So although race will no longer be an issue, skin color will become the new form of racism. So it becomes really important for us to really try to continue on the legacy of James Weldon Johnson and trying to tackle these issues through social activism and sort of forums like this today. So, skin color, of course, will become increasingly important in thinking about how we separate ourselves as individuals in society, and a lot of the sociological projections, at least, argue that there's a new racial order at task. So with that, I will stop my remarks, and then I think I have a couple minutes for questions.